Hi, I'm Isaac Eniojukin.
And I'm Caroline Fernandez. Welcome to Concordia Report's special edition on climate.
On today's show, we're going to be taking a closer look on how Montreal's unpredictable weather is affecting us all.
And we have a good view here from Mount Royal. In a city known for its harsh winters, Montreal looked noticeably different this year without any snow. Now it's here. But what happens to the millions of dollars set aside for snow removal? Reporter Sikandar Hashmi set out to find answers.
These mean machines are good at chewing up the snow and spitting it into dump trucks. They're also good at chewing up part of the $120 million the city of Montreal has set aside this year for snow removal. But with snowplows sitting idle for the early part of this winter, does it mean the city's coffers are overflowing with extra cash? Not really, says City Hall. Spokesperson Darren Becker.
Throughout the entire time, the blue-collar workers are being paid. They were paid to clean up the streets. They were paid to drive city sweepers. They were paid to pick up Christmas trees. They were paid to collect garbage. They were paid to clean up parks and do park maintenance. So just because there isn't snow, they're not sitting idly in their garages, twiddling their thumbs. So that's important to point out. For example,
Becker says they've also been tackling a hated menace, potholes. The city budgets for 200 centimeters of snow each winter. But even if it doesn't snow, private contractors who help the city in getting rid of the stuff quickly are paid 50% of the value of their contracts. The city does save on overtime, though, since no snow means less overtime by blue-collar workers. Snow removal is managed by the boroughs. In 2006, the Ville-Marie borough says it saved up to $700,000 in snow removal costs. The Southwest borough thinks it saved about $150,000 last year, while Côte-des-Neiges NDG and Lachine saved $200,000 and $100,000 respectively. Meanwhile, for at least one private snow removal contractor, less snow doesn't mean less work.
Mostly I do the stuff around the house, make dinner, the laundry, that sort of thing. My wife's out working, so I gotta do something here,
Ottinger doesn't believe warmer temperatures and less snow will discourage homeowners from shelling out about $200 a winter for snow removal.
But I think most people, for the price they're paying, just as soon make sure that the driveway's done. They don't want to be stuck out in the morning either, shoveling themselves out,
For Concordia Reports, I'm Sikandar Hashmi.
Montreal's unpredictable weather is cooling down sales for winter goods, making some business owners just as anxious about the climate as environmentalists. Caroline Fernandez spoke to a few concerned Montreal retailers who believe that it may be too late to make a profit.
With the cold finally hitting Montreal, a Vaudreuil garden centre has already faced the wrath of up and down weather.
Sap is in the tree right now, and with the minus 30, the sap might freeze, and we should see damaged trees or broken branches because of the sap freezing.
Exchanges and warranty claims are increasing at the centre. They expect numbers have almost doubled due to unstable plants weakened by unusual climate patterns. Van Dannebeek is taking precautions for his spring plants.
What you see here is all my plants, my inventory. So I'd say that around here I would have at least $20,000 of worth of plant material, living plant material. And I'm a bit nervous to see how they will react because of the warm weather that we had.
Some stores aren't dealing as much with setbacks and damages. Theirs is a dedicated customer base. Mark Arkin from Ski X says that people are itching to use new winter sporting goods and have been buying things slowly all year.
We've always had snow, we've always had winter, and people, even though, it started really late this year, there was always, the hope of, winter.
Mark admitted, however, winter sports shoppers no longer spend September to March in stores. Instead, they narrow shopping down to a few key months.
Really in the past, probably 5-6 years, it's, there's only maybe 3 months where people are really buying.
For Concordia Reports, I'm Caroline Fernandez.
Winter seems to have finally arrived, and the kids at Sherwood Forest Elementary are enjoying every single second of it. At lunchtime, the kids storm outside and indulge themselves in some powdery white fluff. Most of these kids love the snow and they're having fun. Do you like the snow?
Yes.
Do you have a lot of fun when you play in the snow?
Yes.
Despite the sudden drop in temperature, the kids appear not to be bothered by it. Did you notice any changes in the behavior of your kids when it started to snow?
They were more hyper, more excited.
Winter for these kids is a season full of endless possibilities.
Like, you could build snowmans and chase people around and throw snowballs.
Isaac Eniojukin, Concordia Report. With snow in California and ice melting in northern Canada, people are beginning to ask, is this global warming? The surge in media coverage is trying to answer that question. But from doom and gloom images to skeptics questioning global warming, what exactly is the media trying to say? Melanie Halaboski reports on how the media can spin a story and heat up the climate change debate.
Stand by for a terrifying message from Al Gore.
Hello, I'm Al Gore, and I'm here to scare you about global warming.
Global warming. On TV, in newspapers, and in Hollywood, climate change is a hot topic. But with coverage ranging from scientists warning of men's effect on nature to skeptics questioning the science entirely, understanding global warming can be difficult. Geography professor Damon Matthews knows the public is confused by conflicting reports on climate change. He says the media needs to get on board with scientists and get the facts straight.
Well, I mean, I think there's far too much emphasis right now put on the so-called debate as to whether climate change is real. And I think a lot of the world has moved on past that debate, and really in North America, we're kind of stuck in that initial debate, which is really not a debate anymore in the scientific community.
He says a major complaint is that the media's drive to get different perspectives on the story is creating a bias on the topic.
There are scientists, way more scientists in the world that sort of are on board with climate change as a real issue than there are that aren't.
Journalism professor Anne Brocklehurst has set up a blog with her class on climate change. She hopes to sensitize her students on the media's difficulty in explaining the science behind global warming.
I think it's a general problem with all science and health stories. You know, there are reporters who specialize in that and who are great on science and health issues, and then there are sort of people in the general news pool who have to cover something and make all sorts of common mistakes, like thinking that correlation equals causation and stuff like that, misusing statistics. So
one of her students, Ryan Burgeon, agrees that climate change is difficult to explain to the public.
Science is hard, and you know, newspaper articles are supposed to be readable, and that's where you know, never the twain shall meet.
The question is, who should journalists and the public believe when it comes to global warming? With complex graphs and scientific talks, it's easy to be misled by skeptics.
Literally, there's a handful of really, I would say, reputable scientists that are really outspoken against climate change, and the vast majority of the people out there don't have any scientific credentials, or even if they do have scientific credentials, they don't have climate change related scientific credentials, and so really they're speaking as a informed citizen, perhaps.
He says these skeptics play on small details to fool the public.
I mean, that's what climate skeptics really do, I think. They have this agenda and they present it, and it's full of, their arguments are full of scientific holes, and that gets lost in the media.
Brocklehurst says the public and journalists have to question who these skeptics are.
And when covering an issue like this, it's very important to assess the credibility of the people and decide, partly based on that, whether they deserve news coverage, not just, you know, to have someone on this side and someone on that side.
Also, some coverage focuses too much on the negative aspects of global warming with the idea that humankind is coming to an end. But Brocklehurst believes that scaring people about the end of the world is old news.
As long as mankind has been walking the earth, there have been theories that the world is going to end, that they're going to be, it's theories of the apocalypse. You can read them in the Bible, things are going to be flooded, you know. I think it's a very powerful mythology, and it's obviously very attractive to people, but at the same time, I think it can turn a lot of people off because they think it's just fear-mongering.
But are these doom and gloom images making viewers tune out the warnings on global warming?
Well, I think it has its place. It does give an alarm bell, and there are reasons to give that alarm bell, and sometimes you have to break an issue down into black and white.
Images of disasters and dire warnings are having an impact on the public, says Matthews. Hollywood is also playing its part.
I suspect in the US, Al Gore's movie has made a big difference in terms of starting to shift public opinion. And combined with things like Hurricane Katrina, which was a very dramatic event that was probably linked to climate change.
Although Gore's movie has been criticized of being uninteresting to the general public, it has touched on a new trend, one that focuses on the environment and its effects on humans. And Matthews believes this trend is not likely to fade away from the media.
Well, see, I don't think it'll be forgotten because it's going to keep coming up, and it'll keep getting worse as long as we keep putting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere.
For Concordia Reports, I'm Melanie Holoboski.
Are your medicine cabinets emptier than usual this winter? Isaac and Yajukan discovered that when the mercury goes up, the flu patients go down.
Here at Dr. Naimi's office, things have been a little different. So far, this West Island clinic has been receiving less patients this season compared to previous years. Oddly, the only patients being admitted are senior citizens.
I love all kinds of weather, whether it's cold or this. But what I figure is dangerous this time of the year is that when the weather goes down to -20, you got to dress up in heavy mitts and everything, you know. And the following day it melts. So you never know from one day to another what's going to be the coming, eh?
It appears that the unstable weather patterns is the reason for the decrease of sick people visiting the clinic. But for a family clinic to suddenly turn into a center for geriatrics seems very unusual. Dr. Naimi suggests that older people are more prone to getting sick when the weather changes.
The peripheral artery, they get vasoconstriction, and their blood pressure goes higher, and they are more prone to the heart condition or heart attack.
Although weather fluctuations can cause problems, according to this clinic, people are getting less sick than they were when it was cold temperature all the time.
With the cold weather, they get much more pain on their joint, on the knee, ankles, and legs, especially, and some other joints, they suffer more from the pain with the cold weather. But when with the warm weather, you see much less.
Isaac Eniojukin, Concordia reports. When winter arrives, people feel the need to hibernate, much like animals. But other creatures can't insulate themselves from Mother Nature the way we do. Minor changes could have major impacts. Ernest Hoffman takes a closer look at the consequences of climate change on the animal kingdom.
Humans in their natural habitat. Even in the middle of winter, our homes are heated, our fridges are full, and we travel in climate-controlled comfort. For most of us, climate change is an abstract political issue. But for animals, it's life and death. Professor Donald Kramer studies coral reef fishes at McGill's Bel Airs Research Institute in Barbados. He says warmer water is killing the coral.
There's been quite a bit of problem with what's called coral bleaching, when the corals lose the algae that are sort of part of their symbiotic organisms. And that's another area where climate change is having a very large impact.
And the loss of these ecosystems could cause chain reactions in other areas.
Ecological webs are very complex structures, and you can't simply draw, so this is going to cause this, and this is going to cause this is going to cause this, because there's lots of feedback loops, lots of things affect each other, and it's extremely difficult to predict what's going to happen.
While the effects of climate change may be difficult to predict, we are already seeing the signs. Squirrels and chipmunks took advantage of the warmer weather to gather more food and entered hibernation 2 months behind schedule. And white-tailed deer are increasing in number because the plants they eat aren't buried in snow until later in the season. But these animals live here all year round. In the coming years, the biggest effect might be in the behavior of migratory birds.
What things are going to change are the date of migrations, whether or not to migrate in the first place. That's going to change. So animals will have to be more flexible, not only because of the average change. Average temperatures will go up, but there will be more extremes which are unpredictable.
Biologist Louis Lefebvre studies the ways that animals adapt to changes in their environment. He believes that some of the animals that have adapted to our urban environment will be better able to cope with climate change than their cousins in the countryside.
By living in cities, birds have a microclimate, and that allows them not to have to migrate because it's warmer in cities than when you're nesting in woodlands. So they gain an advantage. So city-dwelling birds have this advantage that there's a better food supply that's more constant if it's related to human or production of food in gardens.
So which urban species is most at risk?
Honestly, I'm a lot more worried about humans, and pigeons are not that important as far as I'm concerned. I'm much more concerned about global warming as a human than as a biologist. And I think it's human culture that matters more than the preservation of this or that species. I don't think we have to worry about pigeons.
For Concordia Reports, I'm Ernest Hoffman.
If you'd like to learn more about the animals at most risk from climate and environmental change, McGill University is holding a free symposium on biodiversity tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. For more information, you can call the number below.
The mild weather we've been having through January is only the start of what could be a drastic change in our global climate. But another issue is beginning to surface. What effect will the warmer weather have on our Canadian identity? Here's Jared Book with his opinion.
Stephen Harper's Conservative government has dragged its feet when it comes to global warming legislation during this warm winter. But some industries are thriving. There are several reports of Canada's tourism industry actually growing during this recent flip-flop. Sugar shacks have opened over the last month and tourists have flocked towards them. But tourists come to Canada in December and January for one thing: skiing. Blue Mountain in Ontario has laid off 1,300 people in late December for a lack of powder and warm weather. Similar layoffs have been taking place at Mont Gabriel in Quebec. Well, what does this mean for Canada's tourism industry? Some experts are predicting by the year 2100, Canada's tourism industry will increase by 220%. The reason? Global warming. Scientists speculate that some hotspots such as Mauritius and Maui will become too warm for travelers. That will make Canada's warmer climate more attractive for people seeking a tropical vacation. Somebody better tell them not to come to Montreal just yet. But will a warmer Canada lose its identity? How many thousands of young hockey players learn to skate on outdoor rinks? Will that change? Will Canada suddenly become a hotbed for baseball instead of hockey, while the baseball season gets longer and longer as the hockey season all but disappears? Only time will tell. But maybe Stephen Harper should look beyond the next election and be more proactive about climate change. Otherwise, the man who's writing a book about the history of hockey may end up being remembered as the Prime Minister who wrote the final chapter in Canada's national pastime. For Concordia Reports, I'm Jared Book.
That's it for Concordia Reports Special Edition on Climate. I'm Caroline Fernandez.
And I'm Isaac Eniojukin.
Thanks for watching.